All right, welcome back to the show, Stan Tatkin.
Thank you. It's great to be here, Jayson.
Yeah, awesome having you back. So Stan, for the listener here, just real quick, go back to episode 53 if you want who Stan is, what he's about, where he comes from, how he got into this work, definitions on secure functioning. We cover that in the first interview. In this one, we're just going to dive a little deeper and carry on from that interview. So just for the listener. So with that said, Stan, I want to start with the current political situation without getting into politics, mostly because I'm curious about the collective nervous system here.
Yes.
What's going on here from an attachment perspective in the collective society?
Well, I mean, there's the 39-40% that seems to be fine. Although I've been hearing that even the supporters of this administration are experiencing an amazing amount of anxiety. So the country is under a lot of anxiety, and I think it has to do with feeling insecure about what is actually happening, what is really true. Do we have a government right now that is coordinated and collaborative? And it does not seem like we do. With the unprecedented amount of leaks that have been coming out, not really from the intelligence community, but from the Hill. It is hard for people to know what is true, what is not true. That alone, I think, stirs up people's fears, and also people who have had traumatic histories, families that are alcoholic, where truth is a problem, transparency is a problem, where there's bullying. It's just stirring up a lot for people as we see the leaders of our country just kind of seem in disarray. So I think this is taking a toll. I'm not sure how long this will last or could last.
Yeah, totally. I mean, relationships are already stressful, right? And then coming home sometimes, and then we've got this going on. So if we take it that if we assume that people are under a lot of stress and there's a lot of fear, and then they go home, what's the impact when people get home, just watching the news and the media, and then they're in their relationship, they're already stressed. Like can you talk about the allostatic load here?
Yes. Well, you mentioned allostatic load, which is the price we pay for adaptation. The more we have to adapt, the more we have to pay on a neurobiological level, and that causes wear and tear on all of these major systems of ours: cardiovascular, autoimmune, inflammation, metabolic. So that is increasing load. But I think it's different. If you're on the West and East Coast, if you're in the city, then you're probably coming home and complaining together about the way things are going. If you are in other parts of the country, you might be not watching the news, or might be feeling just fine or happy. I don't know. I know that people are breaking up. Marriages are breaking up over this. Friendships are breaking up. People are unfriending each other on Facebook.
Oh yeah, that's going on. Yeah,
right. If nothing else, just to get away from the news feed. Basically, that is everyone's complaint.
Yeah.
So it is an extraordinary time. I don't think any of my patients have come in without talking about the stress. And that may be so also for other therapists, other people in the field. So I think people are at a point where the daily stress of what is coming out, what now, that either is going to turn people off from paying attention to the news, or people are going to start to I don't know what's going to happen, actually.
Right. Yeah, who knows? Okay, cool. I just wanted to get your take. On that vein of stress. My wife and I were talking about just the chronic health issues that continue to come up for people, and more diagnoses and so on and so forth. What's the correlation you've seen either in the research or just your own experience around chronic health issues and insecure relationships?
Well, when we think of stress, there's all kinds of stress. We used to talk about good stress, but actually no stress is really great stress. I mean, good stress is that you're enjoying what you're doing and you're busy and you're working on a problem and so on. But hopefully there is a solution to that problem or an end to that project or whatever, and then you can relax.
Mm-hmm.
The problem with relationship is that interpersonal stress tends to be not only at times acute, but also chronic, because that's where you go home. That's where you live. That's your home. And if the relationship is really insecure in terms of the way it functions, that also takes a toll on the brain and body, on the nervous system. And this is why being married alone is no guarantee for a longer life. In fact, you can die sooner if you're in a terrible marriage or terrible relationship, simply because the amount of interpersonal stress that is there day in and day out. So not trusting another person, feeling betrayed, feeling abused, feeling neglected, feeling misunderstood, not being able to get anything done, fighting all day with no repair. All of these things will begin to take their toll physically. And that is the concern that I have, is the matter of interpersonal stress being probably the most common and the most likely to make people look not as young as they should, not as healthy as they should, and feel not as good as they should.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Confirms, just seems to confirm what I notice. And then seems like more and more research out there is also saying that the interpersonal stresses we have in our life, it just really costs us a lot.
It does. And those people who are not married have a different kind of stress. But if they have good friendships and they're well connected socially, they're fine. It's not a matter of, being in a relationship or not being in a relationship, but we do need to have close relationships, whether they're lovers or friends or whatever, family, that is important. But just to be in a relationship, because it used to, the conventional wisdom was that, if you got married, then you're likely going to be healthier and live longer than the average person. Is really not true.
Yeah.
It's the quality of the relationship that resources you and enlivens you and makes you, have all these vitality affects, but not one that is insecure and one that is filled with insecurity and unsafety.
Yeah, that's right. Cool. Yeah. So, all right. I'm going to start diving into, there's a little jumping around that's going to happen because I have some amazing questions from the podcast listeners here.
Sure.
That really love you, by the way, and your work. And, you're one of our more popular episodes. And it's just, I think what you're doing out there from kind of a bottom up model, nervous system model of how to help us actually live together is really groundbreaking and useful. So a lot of us are kind of geeking out on it and at the same time wrestling with it and wondering about it. So here are some really good questions. Our first one is really just my wife and I talking about you and the work, and how do you recommend we don't take things personally? Intellectually, some of us get that, but in a moment's notice, my wife and I'll be on a walk or something, we'll be in a really pleasant space. And then one comment, one little tone of voice sends one of us into, a nervous system memory that now we're flooded. Right. And there's this whole thing going on. So any recommendations for us on the listener too, on how to not take things personally? And because it feels so personal.
Right. Well, first of all, when this happens, are you walking side by side?
Well, that was a hypothetical, but I noticed that when there's a rupture, there's I definitely have a tendency to either already be looking away or want to look away. Right.
So, how do you not take things personally? I don't know. Get a brain implant, or there is no way. We must understand that we are automatic, animals. We're mostly automatic. We're acting and reacting by memory, by this automatic brain that basically runs our life. and does a lot of things without our permission. And so forgive us if we will misspeak or do something, say something that we're probably, likely to do because we repeat these things over and over again. But it feels personal, right? It feels personal. It feels like a personal attack, a misunderstanding, a failure to remember something. But this is the human condition. We forget. We don't remember a lot of things that we maybe should do, shouldn't do, because if you consider all of the things that we do in any given day, it's pretty miraculous that we even do that. I mean, so, I think give each other a break a little bit here in terms of this automation issue, that we mostly don't know what we're doing at any given time or why, and that we're given to make things up, and that we're making mistakes all the time in communication. We think we're being clear, but we're really not. We're making mistakes with memory all the time. We think we remember correctly, but memory is incredibly fallible. And our perceptions are mostly off depending on our state of mind. If I'm in a bad mood, if things have been happening, to me that have been very upsetting, I'm more likely to remember a lot of upsetting things, and I'm more likely to be upset by, through my perceptions, through, smell, touch, and sometimes even taste and vision, that I'm going to misperceive stuff. So I think a lot of this is not so much don't take it personally, but to have the idea that much of this really isn't. That it really is a matter of skill of dealing with these moments and not trying to avoid them because they're unavoidable. What are you going to do after someone or says something or does something that is upsetting to you? That's what we can do something about. You say something to me that upsets me, I could fire back right away, or I could clarify what it is you said and make sure that I understand it. There is a big chance I don't really understand what you mean. Yeah. And I can also do whatever I can do to get us towards relief as fast as possible. But then you have to do that as well, right? Yeah. We have to have a common interest, mutual interest, at getting to relief as quickly as possible, shortening the distress, and then moving it off the table so we can do something else.
Yeah, it's great. I love that you mentioned the lead with relief. You didn't say that exactly, but
right.
Ellen's really brought that to the table here in our relationship, thanks to you, and it's very helpful, right? It's like how quickly I can be like, "Oops, I spilled the coffee or the milk on your blouse or whatever," and I'm gonna like make it better, like quickly,
right?
Because I know what is going to help you.
And both people really have to be on the same page, and with regard to. Whenever we are in distress, we're going to move through it as quickly as possible, as efficiently as possible. That means we focus on one thing and one thing only. We don't keep piling things on to the problem. We lead with relief. The very first thing out of the person, who is thinking they have to defend themselves or have to explain their motives, first thing out of their mouth is, tell me what it is I did, or I wasn't aware, show me, or I am so sorry, I know I do that thing, or you're right, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But unless that person relieves the person who's now aroused and feeling threatened, nothing they say will get through. They don't have an audience. So lead with relief. It's true. I mean,
they're relief. Offline, right?
They're offline, and they're also waiting to see whether what you're going to say is either going to be friendly or unfriendly. If it's unfriendly, get ready to rock and roll, because now the two of you are going to increase in your perception of threat and square off, and now you're going to be taking care of yourselves and your interests only, and that leads to war. So so it's not a nicety leading with relief. It's not a politeness. It's just logical, and it's also reasonable that if your partner is starting to feel threatened, the first thing you do is to wave a flag of friendliness and let them know that you are a friend or not a foe.
Yeah, great. Yeah, amazing. Cool. Okay, here's one. Accepting the other as is and taking full responsibility for one's own faults. Is this the definition of secure functioning?
Well, it is the very basis of secure functioning. If I choose you, but I don't accept you completely as you are, then we're both in trouble, because I'm going to want to change you. I'm going to find fault with you. And the problem with this isn't that I want to change you. The problem is that nobody ever changes at the point of a gun. That if anybody really does change, it's when they're fully resourced in an environment where they are accepted as they are.
Yeah. Yeah.
You relax. I can be myself. You can be you. I love even the parts of you that are a pain in the ass, but you're my pain in the ass, and I love that. So, this is a recipe just for happy living, acceptance of the person that you chose. It doesn't make any sense to do anything other than that. But also, if you want any change, it's only going to happen in an environment, in a milieu where both people feel free to be themselves, accepted as they are. And this is kind of a conundrum, I guess, for people who are unhappy with their partner or parts of their partner, and they want those things to change. They have to understand that it all starts with acceptance. I accept you as you are, but I also take responsibility for the things I do that get in the way of secure functioning.
Yeah.
Whether it's island behavior or wave behavior or just plain bad, rude behavior.
Right. Yeah, great. Okay. Yeah, I mean, there's real power in that if we can do that, and it seems so hard for most of us to accept our partner as they are.
Oh, yes.
All the little complaints and preferences and so on.
Right.
Yeah, great. Okay, here's one from Anna. I'm wondering about attachment styles after 50. Seems to be more intellectually based, lots of weighing lifestyle, money, health issues than falling in love. Could you expand on that for the baby boomers?
Well, secure functioning is not really about love. It's about safety and security. It's about ensuring each other's safety and security. So I'm not sure what the question really is. It doesn't. I'm unclear.
Well, I'm taking that she's saying after 50 years old, for her, this is it feels like a different conversation than maybe a 30-year-old is dealing with. And is there a real difference in an adult attachment relationship after 50 versus one in their 30s? I mean, is there any difference?
No.
The brain's the brain, right?
Well, no, we do change. There's a definite change in midlife. In early 40s, mid 40s, that is universal. Midlife depression is universal among human beings. Turns out it's also among mammals. That there's a biological depression in midlife, but there is a definite shift also for a lot of people, in that they, almost like a brain upgrade, they begin to see themselves and they see the world a little differently, with a little more complexity, which is maybe why Carl Jung didn't like seeing patients who were younger than 35. He felt that they had nothing really to bring to analysis. But there are people who have had trauma in early life, and it lay dormant, and then suddenly in their 40s, this now pops up in a florid way and interrupts their life. There are people who make big changes in their life in this period of this. It's not so much of a brain upgrade as it's a change in terms of perspective. Mortality, looking back at the past. The Peggy Lee song, "Is This All There Is?" And some people make drastic changes. Other people make minor changes. Other people don't feel it at all. So, and then there's 50. People report, I'm one of those people where, there's significant life changes after 50. I got a lot of my creative juice at 50. And so did Alan Shore. He once told me he found the same thing around that age. So there's something going on at these different times, but it doesn't shift attachment. Attachment, if we're talking about the individual meaning of attachment, that is a fluid thing. We can change a lot of our attachment, where we are in terms of, if we were to take the AAI, the adult attachment interview, we would likely test out differently depending on our experiences that we've had between tests, right? The more secure experiences you have in a relationship, like a love relationship, the more likely you're going to test more secure in an AAI. So it's pretty fluid. But just the age itself is not going to do that. And the need for safety and security and for agreement and for loyalty and to that feeling of you can trust this other person with your life, that is as important at 30 as it would be at 60, as it would be at 70.
Yeah, cool. So yes, we change and grow, of course, and go through different developmental stages, but the attachment piece remains fluid.
Yes. And every time we do go through a developmental stage, and especially if it's acute, there's always anxiety and depression because we review our life in 360 degrees. And as Piaget would say, you know, we're going through a period of disequilibration or disorganization, which then forces a reorganization and a moving forward.
Yeah. Yeah. So cool. I could just go down that rabbit hole because I love development, human development. All right. Here's a good one that I feel like comes my way a lot. And I'm guessing you see this every day. And it's really about how to get an island on board, but I want to ask the specific questions. There's two of them that are related, and I think I just want to ask them back to back and then hear your thoughts. Okay, so Jessica says, how to get avoidants or islands in touch with their original longing. This is my $1 million question as someone training to be a therapist and for my personal relationships. So important if a person is to give and receive co-regulation, to be able to validate and reassure someone else, and ask for their own needs. They have to be in touch with that original longing to connect. And then that's a Jessica's. And then Jennifer asks a similar question. If avoidant islands are mostly unaware that they are avoidants, then how do we approach them to explore it without triggering them or coming off as trying to change them?
Well, let's answer the first question. Islands, the reason islands are not as aware of their need for the other person is because they're encumbered by an overwhelming amount of interpersonal stress that's chronic. And so I'm with you, and when you leave, rather than feel longing, I feel relief.
Yeah, exactly.
And people mix this up with love, and it's not about love. It's about, again, safety. That I carry so much interpersonal stress that the first thing I experience when you go away is relief. And then I adapt very quickly to what I've always done, which is to auto-regulate or do something that takes care of myself, skipping over the part where I'm missing you. Now, eventually I will miss you, but how long that is you know, it varies between individuals. The idea that the island actually will miss another person is something that classically we install in psychoanalysis or psychoanalytic therapy. That when the therapist goes away, we might say to the patient, how are you going to take this? How are you going to handle this? Will you be okay? And classically, a patient who is an island is going to say, what do you mean? I'm totally fine. I don't care. Why are you even asking me this? Right? And, you know, that person will be annoyed even that you would suggest that they'd have a problem with you going away on vacation. And that's an expected response, but it's important to continue to ask this question because it eventually opens the door for a thought that they actually could be missing the clinician. And classically, we find their behavior upon return something along the lines of acting out because the reunion causes some behavior. So canceling of an appointment or a coming late or whatever. And that's our other inroad into, I wonder if this has anything to do with the fact that we weren't in contact with each other, that we left each other. You know, it's also important for the clinician to say, well, you know, even though you didn't think of me, I did think of you. Because part of the issue with the island culture is the notion that out of sight, out of mind. When I'm gone, there is no relationship. I'm not holding you in mind, and you aren't holding me in mind. Therefore, I am alone. I mean, that's the brutal fact, and I am alone. But it's lost on me because there's a yay part to being alone.
Right, I'm getting some out of it, yeah.
Right. The other part of it is that I'm untethered. In a love relationship, it's the same thing. I've seen countless partners to islands who just imagine or believe that their island is just great on separations. And I have to do a lot to demonstrate to them that they're actually not okay. Their eating changes, their sleep patterns change, they may not be as efficient. They go back to some kind of addictive behaviors. There's something going on. And even the way the bed is, while that partner is gone. So getting them to understand that their island partner is not as good as they look is very important. So that the partner can say, what are you going to do without me? How are you going to be so long without me being there? Now, this is going to bug that partner too. Mm-hmm. But it does introduce a reality, or at least the possibility of a reality, that there would be a difference without me, and that I'm not worried about me, I'm worried about you. Mm-hmm. And that really changes things for the island, right? Yeah. Once that keeps getting midwifed by the other partner, islands many times will start to be aware that, I really did miss you. I really did think about you. Some people pack pictures of themselves, or clothing, or notes, or whatever, to keep that sort of that object constancy. And that's a problem with islands, is the object constancy. So how do you get an island to realize is one, by not assuming that they're as independent as they say they are, think they are, otherwise. That you are going to speak to their dependency. You're going to speak to the part of them that would feel the loss, the abandonment, and so on. And the other thing is to understand, if you're with an island, to not continue to poke the bear. The part of them that is ensconced in this memory of relational trauma, whereby they're always going to be misunderstood. They're going to be expected to perform for others or do things for others, but it's never for them. They have a hard time being held too long, being talked to too long. They feel it to be intrusive. And this just amplifies the behavior. Mm-hmm. We want to de-amplify the behavior by letting the island know, I get it, I understand. 2 minutes and then I'm out. Come here, give me a kiss, tell me you love me, look in my eyes, you can go away now. This catch and release begins to loosen up the anticipation the island has of being kept, caught, trapped, expected, demanded upon. Once that begins to loosen up, there's actually a move forward. The tendency is our island to move back, because I'm always expecting when you come toward me, you want something from me. There's a demand on me, anything coming. When that changes enough, not all the time, but enough, I begin to loosen up and I begin to move forward naturally, like anybody else. Yeah. Would.
I'm almost hearing it's like a window of their window of tolerance for connection slowly increases. Through like titration or something.
Yes. And to understand that that's what's driving this behavior is a memory, a fear of being used, exploited, interrupted, not allowed to be a separate person, but also not expected to depend. This is where the other partner really has to know that the island is actually very needy and has a lot of unmet infant dependency needs. As long as that is solicited and understood by the other partner, that will begin to draw that person out.
Got it. So one of the ways, per Jennifer's question here, without triggering them, is to do it in small doses. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Proving that you're not going to hurt them the way they anticipate, and also talk as you would to anybody else. You anticipate them longing, missing, needing, and wishing they could depend.
Yeah, and even almost inserting that as a possibility to the island, right? Like, hey, honey, yes. I know you say you're psyched to be free, but I think there's probably a part of you that does miss me, and I'm just curious if that's true.
I know you're going to miss me.
I know you're going to miss me. All right.
And I have all this evidence.
Okay.
So that would take some confidence on the part of the partner to understand that this is not an assault on them. This is a relational trauma continuance of basically relational trauma, whereby something is happening all the time in the family, the culture, and I therefore expect it to happen.
It might be hard for some waves, right, to really have confidence. You're saying,
Yes.
like, I know you're going to miss me, because they're like, no, you don't miss me. I'm scared you don't miss me at all.
Right.
So they're a little caught up in that, right?
Yes, understandably, because what is their fear? Their fear is I'm too much, I'm a pain in the butt, I'm too needy, I'm going to get dropped, you're going to reject me, you're going to withdraw from me, I'm all alone, I can't do this by myself. There's all these fears. And as a wave, just like as an island is scanning for anything that suggests that they're about to be taken advantage of.
Yeah.
The wave scanning for anything that smells or looks like withdrawal, and that feels like punishment. So now you have these two people who, again, nothing to do with love, just has to do with memory, has to do with the fact that they're now deep family, and so they're part of a memory pool that involves everybody, and fear. I mean, mortal fear.
Yeah.
Right. This is not a small thing. So it is very hard. One of the things we do in the office is we'll often work to flip these two, so that the wave can see that the island actually is much more inept and developmentally more delayed than the wave is. And through some trickery, we can do that quite easily in the office. By posing them in a certain way that makes it obvious that the island actually is less defended in many ways. So that's an important thing to do clinically, is to flip those two and expose the island as being more inept socially, emotionally, unable to relax, unable to let go, and the wave actually developmentally more able to hold things together.
Nice. I love it. Okay, great questions. Thanks for the answer there. Here's one, a little just moving through these just for our time here.
Sure.
Kelly's asking, is it actually possible to be attached securely 2 feet in with a partner as an anxious type and be in an open relationship or poly relationship?
The answer is, I don't know. I'd have to see it in my office. When we talk about secure functioning, we're talking about mutual agreements, collaboration, cooperation, fairness, justice, sensitivity, right? We're talking about a fully mutual system. So if that can be sold in a session, in other words, if both partners or all partners can reasonably defend why this is a good idea for everybody, then more power to them. But again, without seeing the people, I can't speak to it because every situation is different.
Yeah. And do you find that the open relationship model, do you find that it's harder to get to security because there's always this kind of chronic threat, or not so much?
Well, unfortunately, and this is the truth, I often see people from poly communities or marriages that are open marriages as they're disintegrating. So in all fairness, I don't get to see from the very beginning, like a premarital situation where we're dealing with a poly community or a polyamorous couple or a couple that wants to have an open marriage. So I only see them on the way down, and I can say that. And I've seen many of them, some of them from the same community, then one by one, they just kind of crumble. The problem is that there's, in point of fact, there's one person who is making an agreement that they truly don't believe in. And that is going to be the Achilles heel of the relationship.
Meaning they're signing on to, like, yes, I'm into open, when I'm actually not.
They're actually not. They're going for it because either they're afraid of what will happen if they don't. They'll lose the relationship, or they may imagine that, sure, why not? What could possibly go wrong? And then they find out. But if you were to interview them at the beginning and really investigate, are you both really on board with this? Do you both believe in it? You probably would find that one of them really doesn't, or is unsure. And then it becomes an unfair situation that just builds on itself.
Okay, makes sense. Great. Here's one from Scott. I'm struggling with getting my oldest daughter to intentionally make eye contact with me when trying to have a conversation. She says that's weird or no, I can't. And after reading Gabor Mate's book around peer orientation, I feel like that may have something to do with it. I'm trying to use eye contact to regulate, which Stan mentions is effective after or during conflict, trying to just get her to soften. Curious to know other strategies to help us connect and help regulate.
I'm laughing because my next question is, how old is this daughter?
I think she's a teen,
Okay.
but I'm not totally certain. I'm pretty sure.
So, eye contact, very good for adults, bad for teens. Teens experience this as intrusive, invasive. And if you do that too much, they will start to feel trapped and invaded upon. That is because of the teenage brain. They don't like it. Now, there's a book called Zubiquity, which is a wonderful book written by a UCLA cardiologist and an famous animal behaviorist, talking about large cats. Large cats. These are the tigers and so on.
Yeah.
One of the ways that you can get them to seize or to have a heart attack is to restrain them and look in their eyes. These are high octane animals. Teenagers are high octane
Right.
animals.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't work as well. The parent has to be very skillful with gazing in terms of when to use the eye gaze and when not to. And in this sense, it's usually when the teenager makes it first. If any of your audience has ever seen Beatrice Beebe work, she's a brilliant researcher and clinician out of the Boston Change Group. That's Dan Stern's group.
Okay.
Late Dan Stern. She would demonstrate babies who have been intruded upon with an invasive parent, and they won't look. They won't look anymore. Their eyes keep going away. They keep ducking.
Mm-hmm.
And the way that she would demonstrate to get around that is by using joint attention. Joint attention is utilizing a third object as a way to bridge the relationship together. So the baby is looking at something. So Beatrice would just look in that direction and start to comment on the object that the baby is looking at with some pleasure. The baby then would start to amplify the pleasure, right? And naturally what happens is that the baby then looks right at her. And that's kind of a reflex. When we jointly attend to something together as a couple, and let's say it's our cute dog or sweet dog, or it's a beautiful scenery, something delightful. We'll look at it, we'll comment at it, and we'll tend to look at each other because we're amplifying each other by using that third thing as a tool. Basically.
Yeah, it's like a bridge.
It's like a bridge.
Yeah.
So that would be the way I think to approach a teenager.
Cool.
Instead of chasing their eyes, join them in what they're doing. Bridge with them because you're not trying to intrude. You're joining them with that third thing. That will bring them into your eyes, and then you can do that. But otherwise, I think this is not a good idea to do this.
Cool. That just brought up a quick question on like my parents' generation. Folks who might have some kind of secure attachment relationship where they sit down and watch their shows every night. Right. And they're watching TV, staring at the third object, right, which is the TV.
Right.
But they're not and rarely looking in each other's eyes. Is that still a sign of a pretty insecure relationship?
Well, it's called parallel play, and we all do it. The only problem is that we're missing an opportunity to use a third thing to amplify our relationship, which would probably fall into the category of exciting love, that sort of dopaminergic, addictive love. And so, when we're doing parallel play, we could be missing all these opportunities to amplify each other and to create that feeling of being in love. But the other thing is that if we do too much parallel play, we begin to experience a certain kind of loneliness that is quite profound.
Yeah.
And will often lead to the dissolution of the relationship. And it has to do with being together and not being together. I mean, we're together in the same room, but we're not together. We're there, but not there. And that becomes a problem. If you're in the room and you're not relating to me, that feels different than if you're not in the room. If
Mm-hmm.
you're not in the room, there's no problem because you're not in the room. But if you're in the room and you're not relating to me and you're withdrawn or you're isolating, whatever, that can be very disturbing to people.
Yeah.
That's worse. Just like having a home office sometimes is a structural issue because kids, even adults, don't really grok the idea that you're here, but you're not here. I
Mm-hmm.
can get it if you're at your office, you're working, but you're in home, door closed, can't get in, can't talk. That feels badly. That
Mm-hmm.
tends to feel badly. So make people feel badly. So that's the problem with parallel play. Too much of it will
Yeah.
end to loneliness and problems.
Yeah. Got it. Okay. Okay, cool. Here's one from Jennifer. How to work with or employ attachment styles to move through a developmental stage? Is it the secure base that ultimately addresses this by creating a safe space for necessary healing or growth? Or are there specific ways to, quote, grow up the parts of ourselves that are stuck at a certain age?
A little bit hard to track because I couldn't tell if the writer was talking about an early development or late development. So could you read that once more? And
Yeah.
I may need you to help interpret it.
Yeah. How to work with or employ attachment styles to move through a developmental stage. Is it like a secure home base can ultimately address, like if we have a secure home base, does that create a safe enough space for us to develop ourselves and grow parts of ourselves up that are wounded, for example, that are maybe developmentally stuck at a certain age?
Well, as I said before, what security does is it frees up resources, right? Resources that otherwise will be used for a chronic anxiety about that secure base. Is it really secure? Do I have to cling to it? Do I have to run away from it? What do I have to do? Not that
Mm-hmm.
that would be a misnomer to say it's a secure base then,
Right.
but that object, that primary object, right? So development moves forward when there are resources for it, but when there's massive insecurity or trauma, that's the great interrupter. And now resources are being used for other things and none for development. We see children develop physically, but emotionally, psychologically,
Stunted.
Yes, stunted because all those resources are being used up by the anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
The same with us as adults. If you're in a relationship that is constantly feels threatening to you, where you're auditioning all the time, where you feel the relationship may not exist tomorrow, that is a tremendous resource drain. Let alone get her through the day. How are you going to push through and forward your development? There's no way.
Mm-hmm.
That's why we started off with this whole idea of accepting each other as you are gives the space for something actually to happen. Not accepting each other as you are will definitely tie up resources and you won't be able to develop.
Yeah. Okay. Absolutely. All right. Here's one from Stephanie. I'm currently reading Wired for Dating, and I'm still baffled that although I think I'm consciously choosing someone who is not like my father was to me, I'm still subconsciously choosing certain characteristics, especially guys who are emotionally unavailable. I would love more clarification on this.
So your picker isn't wrong.
Mm-hmm.
That we pick familiars is normal. That's what we do. That's we're not going to pick somebody that we don't recognize. You have to understand that is part of a recognition factor, and there, of course, anybody who seems somewhat familiar to us, familiar and familial, we're going to be gravitated. We're going to gravitate towards. That's not a problem. It doesn't mean that you wipe out anybody who ever had a drink because you came from an alcoholic family. But the question is, these experiences that you've had with these familiars, have you been able to metabolize those experiences? Have you been able to organize them? Do you know how to handle the you that feels badly with someone who seems unavailable?
Mm-hmm.
Do you know how to handle that in yourself? Do you know how to handle that other person? So we keep getting these challenges, finding people who remind us of other difficult people or remind us of other difficult experiences that we still have not mastered. And then we say, well, I just married my mother or my father, which is actually only small truth, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's we're marrying a lot of people when we get married to one person. So I think it's the question is, does this person want to play? Here I have an idea of what I want. I want a two-person system that is fully engaged, that wants to be here. If you're messed up, still ply. That's fine. Doesn't matter. You can be messed up. You just have to want the same things I want.
Yeah.
To be on the same page with me about how the relationship will go. If you're not, bye-bye. Right?
Yeah.
And that's why I tell people to focus on what they want in a relationship, not the person. This is how the relationship must go. And it must go for me, and it must go for person X. It has to be mutual, it has to be fair, it has to be agreed upon. This is what we are going to stand for.
Yeah.
And then if not that person, then you pass. Yeah,
great. Yeah, so if a person's unavailable or whatever their issue but they're willing to be in a mutual relationship, it's the unavailability is workable, right?
I get it. I do that. I'm sorry. I don't want to lose you. Okay. So that there is a clear skin in the game for both people. Both people are invested in this. The person you don't want is the person who doesn't see or care to see what they're doing. And it doesn't matter to them what you think. It doesn't matter to them whether this is a secure functioning relationship. They don't really care. That's the person you drop quickly.
Yeah, great.
They're never going to come around.
Yeah. Oh, totally. Okay, one more. This is, I think you kind of answered this already. This is from Audrey. I'm wondering about attachment and siblings. I understand that we choose a spouse possibly based around the parent we most wanted love from or to heal to resolve that. But I'm wondering if this applies to maybe craving a sibling's attention or love and possibly choosing a spouse to help resolve that instead of a relationship with a parent. Is that a thing?
I don't know. I mean, people are pretty complex. I don't think it's ever just any one thing. There's many things, right? There's things to heal from a sibling relationship, from an ex relationship, from a parent, from an aunt, from a teacher, from a nanny. I mean, to say that one person is going to be a proxy for just one other system, like a sibling system, is probably not likely. Sometimes I feel like you're just my sister, right? In fact, I don't want to be married to you because you feel too much like my sister. It's probably also not, it has to be looked into and investigated thoroughly because it's probably not as it seems.
Yeah, it's like a conglomerate is what you sort of said before.
It's a conglomerate and there's something else going on. People, if people in your audience understand nothing else, people say all sorts of shit and they have no fucking idea what they're talking about.
That's right. Oh, yeah.
And if you're a clinician out there, keep that in mind, folks, because if it looks like a duck, it's likely a dog. and as clinicians, we have to be hip to that. It's that kind of a thing would be delicious to get into the question and to interview those two people to find out what that really is. I hope I can say swear words on your podcast.
Absolutely.
Okay, good.
Hell yes. Fuck yes. Stan, great. I'm aware of the time, so let's wrap up. And what, just kind of to close, what's alive and exciting in your life, and what are you up to so people can be following you and tracking you and signing up for your courses or whatever?
Well, in June we'll be in teaching in Australia once again, which is lovely. Looking really forward to that. We have several retreats coming up. One in Tuscany in October. That's a week-long intensive. It'll be in the heart of Tuscany in a beautiful villa, starting off in Venice. That is highly recommended. We've done the same kind of a retreat with the same group in Costa Rica, and it was wonderful. We'll be at Kripalu. We'll be at Omega. We'll be at Esalen. We'll be opening up, one of the people opening up 1440 up north in Northern California. We're all over the place for retreats, and you just go to thepactinstitute.com or stantatkin.com, and you can look into that. The retreats are actually quite terrific.
Awesome.
Right now I sound like Trump. The retreats are very nice.
Cool, man. Well, you're such a wealth of information and resource for my family. And I know so many couples and individuals out there for relationship stuff. So thank you again for who you are, your time, and what you're bringing.
It's my pleasure. And give my love to your beautiful wife.
You got it. All right.
Okay.